What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're all doing well, and thanks so much for taking the time out of your day to click here on another video, where today we're going to be talking about a film I was pretty excited to check out, and that film is called The Smashing Machine. Written, directed, edited, and produced by Safdie, this film stars people like Dwayne Johnson, Emily Blunt, Ryan Bader, and more. And before we get into this, I want to make it clear to all of you guys that when it comes down to the true life story that this film is about, I honestly wasn't really familiar with it until going into this film. It's not a story I'm familiar with in any way, so if there's any creative liberties here or inconsistencies to the true life story, I don't know what they are, but I will open that up to you guys, that if you are familiar with the true life story of the individual we're going to be talking about now in this review, please let me know down below what changes the movie made, because I'd definitely like to hear where they kind of took creative liberties. But with all that said, when I first saw that this film was coming out and that it was going to be directed by Safdie, who is one of the Safdie brothers, who this is his first film since splitting off from his brother after they did another film with A24 called Uncut Gems, I was pretty excited. The film is also being hyped up heavily for Dwayne Johnson, giving a very different performance for his career, possibly a career-defining performance, and we're going to get into all that right now. But as usual, let's get into what this film is all about first, and then we'll get into my thoughts. The Smashing Machine dramatizes a pivotal span in the life of Mark Kerr, a legendary MMA and bare-knuckle fighter. Between 1997 and 2000, Kerr's dominance in the sport collides with internal and external pressures like addiction, relationships, and the cost of being a force in a brutal, evolving arena. The film is a less traditional sports biopic and more of a character study of a man torn between the ring and his demons. And as I just mentioned, the big hype up that this film has been having is Dwayne Johnson, people wanting to see a new, big, career-defining performance from The Rock, and I'm happy to say you get that here with The Smashing Machine. There are elements about this film narratively that I don't necessarily know are going to work for everybody, but what I can say that will mostly be the biggest positive that people will have to say about this film are the performances in general, but most notably Dwayne Johnson. I genuinely think this is a career-defining performance for him. I've been a fan of The Rock for a long time. While I've never really been big into wrestling, I always appreciated him in that era, especially as somebody who mainly took in wrestling through the video games. But when it came down to his movie career, it took quite a few movies for myself, and I'm sure many of you guys, to get into him as an actor. But in the modern day, he's one of those actors that people love, but he's also an actor people have kind of come to expect a very samey kind of performance from. And so going into this film, I was hoping for something that was going to really change it up for him, and I'm happy to say he does just that. He's great in this film as the character of Mark Kerr. Again, I wasn't familiar with the true life story of this guy, but I think he does a great job becoming somebody else. There are moments where it feels like The Rock, I won't lie, but I think for the most part he does a good job of playing a very different character from the various films that we've seen him do. And he also has a different look here as well. He has a wig on for majority of the film that at times is wigging. I won't lie, there are moments where it looks like a wig, most notably from the back. He also has a prosthetic in the forehead area, mostly in the brow area, so he looks more like the real life guy. And so I think he does a good job, and the makeup department does a good job of making you feel like this is a completely different character, that this isn't just your run-of-the-mill Rock performance. And a lot of that is really elevated as well by the great filmmaking that's here. I already mentioned the prosthetic work, but you also have all the things that take you back to the late 90s, all the things you want in a period piece, like the clothing and the vehicles and the musical score in the film, or, you know, having cell phones, big Nokia cell phones on your waist. I think that this film did a great job in terms of all the production elements to take you back to that time. And then you add that in with The Rock's performance, and you just have a film that feels very different for him as a performer and as an actor. And outside of him, you have people like Emily Blunt, who plays the character of Dawn. She's the love interest of his alongside him. And like I said in that synopsis read, you know, he's struggling with a lot of demons in this movie. This isn't a film that is about telling you how he became this amazing fighter and maybe some of the best, biggest moments in his life, but instead kind of goes into a chunk of his life where things were at a low. And I think that might turn some people away, because this isn't really a really super happy film. This isn't the kind of film that has a whole lot of victory. There is a nice message by the time you get to the end of the film, but I do think this is a film mostly that is filled with a lot of downers and a lot of sad moments in this guy's life. You know, not only is he getting beaten down in the ring, but he's also getting beaten down in life when it came down to his addictions, and most notably a toxic relationship between him and Dawn, played by Emily Blunt. What I will say though is that the two of them had great chemistry in this film, and when it is great, when it's loving, when it's supportive, the two of them played off of those moments beautifully. But when it's toxic, it's super toxic. And at times, the film doesn't know how to make you feel, or you don't know how to feel watching the film, because at times you feel like they have a really great relationship. And true to life, a lot of times there are relationships like that where things go south shortly after. I do think that the film at times struggled though with that up and down, because the film has these great moments of ups, but a lot of downs because of where we are in this guy's life. Again, not only the stuff that happens in the ring, but also his relationships. And so it does feel like we have great moments and bad moments, great moments and bad moments, which again are definitely elements that are true to life. But that was one thing that I could tell may turn some people away. But one thing that won't turn people away, or that will at least impress people alongside these oftentimes frustrating characters, are great performances. I think Emily Blunt was great. I think Dwayne Johnson was great. And another standout performance for me in the film for sure is Ryan Bader, who plays Mark Coleman, who is another name in the early days of MMA and the UFC. And this film makes a point to let you know that this film is about two big names in the earlier days of UFC, long before these fighters would go on to have this huge celebrity status and make millions of dollars per fight. And so it's kind of really about like these early days of getting this kind of entertainment and this kind of fighting to the level of popularity that it is today. But yeah, I think it's really important to know that this isn't a film about victory per se. This is a film about seeing somebody go through a hard time in their life, which did make me want to learn more about Mark Kerr, but as somebody who wasn't familiar with him, it did make me feel like I didn't get enough of his story. But with that said, you still do get a decent chunk of his life here, and it's all elevated by great performances and that great production value, the musical score, and all those things. I think Benny Safdie does a great job of showcasing why, even without his brother, he is one of the bigger names in directing, and with him also being the editor and the writer and the producer, he clearly had hands-on all around to make this film as tight as he possibly could. I think this is a film that narratively, because of the ups and downs, may turn some people away. It does at times feel a little bit jarring and doesn't feel like it flows the way you would want a traditional biopic to feel, as they kind of are jumping around to different big events in his life. But I ultimately left the film with more positive than negatives. I couldn't help but be gripped to the film. And by the time the movie was over, I thought to myself, it kind of breezed by. I never found myself bored, and I really found myself captivated by the performances, most notably Dwayne Johnson. I think that he is definitely going to be in the conversation for awards contention as we get to the end of the year and the early part of next year. I think he's definitely going to be one of those performers that people are thinking about, especially since we're in that later part of the year already. It's going to be one of those performances I'm thinking about. And more than anything, I just hope that this kind of, sets him on a path of more artistic or different kinds of performances in his career. I love a lot of the things he's given us in the past, but again, I think a lot of people have kind of gotten tired of the same old Dwayne Johnson shtick. And I think if you are a fan of him and you just want to see something different from him, you got to go check out this film. You got to go support it. Emily Blunt's great. Ryan Bader's great. The rest of the supporting cast is great. And Benny Safdie is definitely showcasing that he can do it without his brother for sure. Again, I didn't love everything about the story. I think there's elements about the ups and downs that could have been handled a little bit better, but I ultimately found this to be a really solid time at the theater. So that's going to be my thoughts on The Smashing Machine. Leave some comments down below. Are you planning on checking out this film? Have you already checked it out? Whatever the case may be, leave any and all comments down below, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.